Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about the use of generative AI in enterprise-grade business applications. Clearly, enterprise companies are adopting Gen AI at a rapid pace, but there are some perils and some possibilities they're overlooking. To discuss that, I'm joined by a major industry expert. With me is Stephen DeAngelis, founder and CEO at Enterra Solutions. Steve, very good to have you with us today.
Nice to be with you as well, James.
You know, I really cannot believe the amount of excitement about generative AI in the last several months, really over the last year or so. It really has been a mini hysteria. And of course, we understand why. There's an enormous amount of power and possibility of generative AI. I think companies are not really even beginning to truly capture it. I know you're close to the topic. I'd like to get your thoughts as you survey the marketplace about how companies are using Gen AI in enterprise business applications. What trends do you see moving the market this year?
Well, I think that you had mentioned that there's been a little bit of an explosion or a hyper awareness of generative AI, and I think you have to think of it as additive to all of the last several years of work that's been done in the market about artificial intelligence and data science. So there's been a little bit of a foundational knowledge laid over the last several years that now generative AI, and especially the way ChatGPT operates, it brings to life artificial intelligence for companies in a way that machine learning algorithms by themselves didn't do previously.
Just a short interruption. I think it's so true. I think it's sort of been lost that artificial intelligence is not new in the enterprise. It's been going on for several years. I think there's been a certain amount of frustration among companies. They put money into it, and in some cases, it's been an expensive science experiment. But no, really, I think the consumer world woke up to artificial intelligence last year, but the enterprise world has been doing AI for several years.
Well, they've been doing AI, but it's been in the domain of PhD mathematicians and statisticians, right? Who are
Right.
using things like statistical mathematical models or machine learning algorithms to perform functions more efficiently within a business. But they haven't been able to break out to use the technology in a cross-enterprise way. And when people were able to see ChatGPT over the last several years, and the sort of the conversational or the front end communication nature of it, it started to bring it to life for people who weren't PhD mathematicians or data scientists, and it became more popularly available. Now, I will tell you that AI is a massive force for transformation in the enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at generative AI, our clients to answer your question earlier, our clients are using generative AI today, and they're seeking applications for a technology so they can try it out, right? But they haven't been looking at enterprise scale applications. Usually they've been consumer to consumer or business to consumer applications, usually in marketing related activities, right?
Mm-hmm.
We at Enterra have a slightly different perspective where we use it as part of an ensemble of technologies to help transform the way that businesses fundamentally operate. And to me, that's really the exciting breakthrough that's happened, is that generative AI has given the permission to many more business people in the organization to use artificial intelligence to now help transform those organizations. And we have seen leading companies in the world who have adopted Lean and Six Sigma previously, competitive advantage, total quality management years and years ago. The same companies that use those advanced management techniques are now adopting generative AI along with artificial intelligence and advanced analytic capabilities to transform the way they work so they could get a generation of competitive advantage in the marketplace.
It seems like there's a lot of interest, a certain amount of trepidation about using generative AI. And then it seems like when it comes to enterprise grade applications, a lot of those really hefty applications are legacy applications, or at least partially, legacy applications. And so what about the idea of building artificial intelligence or Gen AI into one of these legacy applications? Is that actually going on, or is it only the newer enterprise applications?
So I'm glad that is a perfect segue actually
Oh,
to
good. Good. I gave you a perfect segue. Steve, come on.
and it was not the nature of that was or is that the for the last 40 years, leading companies like SAP, Oracle, and Salesforce and others have
Right.
built what's called transactional systems of record. Those were systems that were meant to record transactions, not make a mistake at scale, but were never engineered to dynamically think about changeable data in the marketplace and help companies navigate in a real-time environment their business. Today, we have uncovered a tens of billions of dollar market size niche for a thing that we call a system of intelligence. Think
Hmm.
about a system of intelligence that sits on top of the data and process layers that reside within the transactional systems of record. Now you have a system of intelligence which creates the ability to dynamically sense, think, act, and learn about the environment that businesses are operating in so you can navigate that. You can navigate a rather changeable landscape dynamically and bring the concept of autonomy to the enterprise. So over the last 3 years, James, we've had almost the perfect storm or petri dish for experimenting with a system of intelligence because we had problems with the pandemic, we had geopolitical problems, we had inflation, we had Russia's war in Ukraine affecting
Right.
the global food and agricultural value chain and the cascades to that. So what happened was companies needed to be nimble at a degree that they haven't been able to be nimble previously. And the artificial intelligence that we were able to use allowed companies to be able to analyze data, generate a recommendation, make a decision at the speed of the marketplace, where you couldn't have humans manually cranking analysis by hand. These technologies allowed the leading companies to navigate effectively those dramatic marketplace changes that we were experiencing over the last several years.
Well, all right, good. I want to make sure I understand the idea, your idea of system of intelligence. It's, as I understand it, it sounds like it's almost an abstraction layer over an enterprise application. One of these good old apps we've been used, 15, 20, even 30 years in some cases. Hard to really rebuild that. So you're saying there's a system of intelligence. It's
Absolutely.
an AI layer above that
Yes.
good old older
Exactly.
application, and it's actually interacting with it between, say, the human or the system and the application itself. It's almost like robotic process automation at the enterprise level, as opposed to RPA at the workforce level.
Except
Go ahead, please.
it's not RPA. RPA
Right.
it is more of a intelligent agent based function
Based
that
on what? I'm sorry.
it's an intelligent agent based function. So a robotic process automation says if this, then we do that, right? This says if this happens under these conditions, what is the optimal outcome that we can execute given the corporate strategy that you have? Robotic process automation could never even approach that.
Right. No,
So
no, right.
this is truly creating an intelligence layer that is that abstraction layer. Think of it as a common brain that sits on top of the transactional systems of record, generates insights, and sends instructions to the transactional system to say, system of record, do this and do that. And then it then gets the results, learns from it, and then uses that learning to inform the next decision it makes.
Okay, good. All right, I see that. I see definitely the advantage of that. I'm imagining what the critics would say, and so I'll give you a chance to answer what I think the imaginary critics might say. They might say, well, we like that. We don't necessarily want just an abstraction layer over the application. We want the AI built into the application itself. We want that good old-fashioned database working faster and better because the AI is built into that rather than an abstraction layer above it. Do you hear anyone saying that?
Yeah, no, these are the abstraction layer, James, is systems integrated to the transactional system of record.
Aha. Okay. All right. Good. So it's really not above it necessarily. It is with it. It is encompassing it.
Yes, I mean if you think about it in a technology architecture, it's above it, but it is systems integrated too. So, for example, when we would do a trade promotional recommendation for a consumer packaged goods firm, the recommendation is autonomously generated by the intelligence layer, and then the instruction gets sent through an integrated connection point to the transactional system for execution, right? It goes, so there's a two-way street connectivity
Yep.
and to that system. So, for example, we in SAP are innovating massive capabilities like that to drive transformational change throughout the organization by integrating the system of intelligence to the system of record or the digital core of SAP, which runs, most of the Fortune 500 companies.
Right.
So
Right.
it is a very, very um, powerful combination, and it is the next step in the evolution of enterprise computing is to leverage the legacy investment. You don't want to replace the legacy investment that firms have had because, quite frankly, SAP and Oracle, they've done great jobs in
Right.
building the transactional systems of record. They're very decades long durable,
Sure.
but this now lengthens the time and durability of those systems of record and allows companies to leverage their legacy investments.
Okay, so you're breathing new life into old dogs, so to speak. I totally get that. I see the demand for that. That's pretty exciting. Well, then let me go to a different angle then. Let's say there are companies that out there who want to optimize their use of generative AI in the enterprise. Maybe your answer is simply to use your system, but I mean, other than that, which could be a good answer, how can companies optimize their use of generative AI in their enterprise infrastructure?
Well, part of the challenge is, James, is that generative AI is a emerging technology where
Mhm.
you're seeing the tip of the iceberg. If
Right. Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's literally like the tip of the iceberg that's happening. And quite frankly, I think that generative AI is almost going to be to a large extent the provenance of large tech firms because
Mm.
they're going to generate the massive large language models,
Mhm.
and they're going to have to over time validate the large language model because right now the problem with generative AI in scalable enterprise applications is that you have the garbage in garbage out problem, right, on
Mhm.
steroids, because
Right.
you can't validate that the information that the Gen AI is gathering from the internet is efficacious. So
Right.
as a result of that, and then when you try to do it internally, you've been probably following the recent analyses on what the cost level is for a
Sure.
company to develop it internally themselves. So I think if you liken generative AI as a massive and AI itself as a massive foundational platform, there will be different players along the continuum doing different things. So large tech like Google and Microsoft and Amazon and others will generate the fundamental large language models and the chat GBT's capabilities. But those are going to take tens of billions of dollars to build and curate over the next decade, much like Amazon spend tens of billions of dollars to redo the um, retailing, right, online.
Right. Right.
This is the same kind of mass investment. But then you're going to see firms like ours and others using generative AI in conjunction with other artificial intelligence, right? And machine learning and data science applications to perform optimization and decision making in very discrete but yet transformative functions along the value chain of firms that
Mhm.
will help transform the way companies operate going forward. So I think you're going to see like a dual level thing where you've got large asset plays that are the provenance of large tech. And then you're going to see transformative business applications that are driven by firms like mine who use Gen AI in combination in an ensemble with other artificial intelligence and data science techniques to build transformative applications for the ways that businesses operate.
I totally see that, and I think you touched on one of the key issues, which is the idea of the large language model. It's going to be expensive to create a really proprietary LLM, and it's going to be a competitive advantage to have a really specific LLM that can feed you the kind of data you really need. And there's going to be large companies that are going to have an advantage of that. I'm going to guess that world of the large language model is going to be commodified And so it's going to be open to a lot of different people outside of large enterprise. It might be citizen journalists. It could be small developers. It could be small startups that do even consumer applications.
Mhm.
I think that the world of the LLM will be open to all. Agree? Disagree?
I think it's open to all, but so anything that is in our world, right, is open to everybody. I
Sure.
think, but when you want to do search, historically, you've gone to Google or you've gone to some of the other major search engines, and when you want to buy ads or place ads, you go through some of the major tech platforms. So I think there's going to be this bifurcation, like I said. Some of the large investments going to be done by major firms, and some of the innovative yet still big applications are going to be done by emerging entrepreneurial firms, right, who have a great idea and they're going to leverage some of this. But there's two pieces to the puzzle that Gen AI, James, doesn't address itself. One is the common sense knowledge. See, in Enterra, we use things called ontologies and knowledge bases. And
Yep.
within our platform, we have the world's largest common sense knowledge base. And that knowledge base that has come from decades of research, right, that a um, partner of mine has done, has curated common sense knowledge. So when you want to reason, let's say you want to take a large language model and put it in common sense context, right? Understand things like, can a grandchild pre-birth its grandparent, right? A
Mm,
common sense knowledge base knows that ahead of time. So when you're
right.
looking to reason about the information in an LLM, you need common sense to to combine with the knowledge you derive from the LLMs. Let's say you're casting a net and you're bringing information about molecular biology
Right.
in an LLM. You want commonsensical knowledge to apply against that, such that when you then take the other piece that LLMs don't have, which is a reasoning ability, you use the thing called an inference reasoner to reason against that combined knowledge. And that's how we use um, um, technology today, this ensemble of technologies today, along with very discrete mathematics, to use large language models and generative AI in a practical way,
Mhm.
right? And so I think you're going to find, large LLMs done by large companies or firms like, like I said, Microsoft and Google. But
Sure.
then you're going to find almost like, think about it as micro LLMs that are industry or domain focused language models that address a particular part of the marketplace. And then those will be used along with other technologies to drive very practical business applications.
Interesting. Okay, makes perfect sense. I want to get to the idea of discussing the future, and I also really want to give you a chance to say what Enterra does. I think you've pretty much covered Enterra. Tell you what if you do sort of the nutshell, this kind of almost the 11-second elevator pitch of Enterra, and then we'll move on to the future because I want to keep our whole presentation fairly time limited for so folks actually watch the whole thing. So
Sure.
can you give us kind of what in a nutshell, how is Enterra addressing the generative AI needs of its clients?
Enterra is using generative AI as a part of an ensemble of technologies that we call autonomous decision science that help build a system of intelligence that we discussed earlier that helps transform the way that large companies operate by creating an intelligence layer that performs enterprise class optimization, decision making, and learning, and connects that intelligence layer by through systems integration into the legacy transactional systems of organizations. And through that, we help transform the way that core operations along the value chain work, like consumer insights, revenue growth, supply and demand planning. And we do that in a comprehensive, systemic way without humans being involved in the day-to-day calculation of those things. We can act at the speed of the marketplace.
Mhm. Yeah, by the way, you mentioned SAP. Is there an alliance with SAP, or is that you mentioned that in passing?
No, we have an alliance with SAP. So, and we have a alliance with Salesforce, right? And the
Okay.
notion there is we seek to connect our intelligence layer to the transactional systems of record, such that the client has a seamless interaction between the intelligence layer and the transactional system of record, or the digital core of SAP.
Right. Okay. Great. All right. So let's talk about the big question, the $1 billion question, the future of generative AI in the enterprise. I think there's some smart people all across America, all across the globe, thinking about that one, putting a lot of thought and effort and investment into that one. What do you see, say, 2, 3, 4 years out? I wouldn't even ask you for like a long time frame, but just maybe, 36 months, 48 months from now, Gen AI in the enterprise. What sort of stuff do you see, Steve?
I think, and I could tell you sort of some of the lessons from the practical frontiers of that today.
Mm-hmm.
Is we're building what I call intelligent agents. Think of that as anthropomorphized knowledge buddies
Yep.
that sit within an organization. So let's say you're a supply chain planner at a company. You're helping plan the supply chain functions of a large corporation.
Sure.
You will be able to, within the next 12 and 18 months, have a anthropomorphized knowledge buddy. Think about a version of an R2D2.
Right. I can see my own knowledge buddy. Sure.
So working next to you that says, hey, James, this happened last overnight. Our production plans were affected by A, B, and C. Here's our recommendations for you to navigate that supply chain challenge. And here's the recommended course of action. Would you like me to execute that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's going to leverage the conversational AI part of Gen AI, right? But it's also going to leverage the other technological assets I mentioned to you earlier. So what you're going to see now is we've been very accustomed to autopilot. When you hear planes flying with autopilot, you've heard of autonomous vehicles, right?
Sure.
Now the concept of autonomy is going to be brought in pieces to the enterprise, where Gen AI applications will augment, not replace, but will augment the humans playing roles along the continuum of the value chains of large, mid-sized, and small companies.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I guess were you going to say one more thing?
I just think it's a very cool future, because now you're going to see these things as assistants, as knowledge buddies that help you do your job faster, more efficiently, so you could spend more time thinking about the strategic application of what you do and how to use your decision-making ability better in your day-to-day operations. And I think it's rather exciting.
Yeah, I definitely see the idea of an autonomous infrastructure developing. That AI would run quite a bit of it. It would augment, not necessarily replace some of the humans. It might replace some of the humans. We don't know for sure. But the other interesting piece of that, and this is complete, wild card conjecture, is that we know that artificial intelligence learns by itself to a certain extent. An algorithm can iterate and iterate and iterate, actually become smarter over time. That's one of the revolutionary ways in which AI is different from traditional technology. I guess when we think about an autonomous system running a very complex enterprise infrastructure, the question would be, as AI evolves over time, and what sort of management decisions is it going to make in its autonomous mode? And I guess that's an open question.
I think if you think about decision making in the pyramid, right, and you have decisions on the bottom that are rather ordinary decisions that you would tend to render, to a robotic process, or you would render to junior level staff, right?
Sure.
Here, those decisions would get made autonomously out of the box.
Yep.
The next level, the middle layer of the pyramid, are augmented human intelligence, where the system is generating a recommendation for the human to then approve and say, yes, yes, intelligent agent, knowledge buddy, you've done a really good job analyzing that. I'm going to execute or not execute that recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
And then the top of the pyramid are decisions that are still in the provenance of the human, but the AI has assembled the information package that the human needs to have in order to analyze it and make that human decision, and then instruct the AI to go take an action. So I don't think this is not where we're going to have a clear, bright line that says today humans do it and tomorrow autonomous systems do it. But there'll be a transition where trust and reliability get built into that, much like we have trust in autopilot on an airplane, and much like we have trust. We're building trust now with self-driving vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Steve, it's fascinating. I thank you for sharing expertise today. It's going to be an amazing sector to watch in the years ahead. Unpredictable, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for sharing your insight today, and come back and talk with us again sometime.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great day.